I'm Amirah Allen, 32, physical therapist. My family just publicly disinvited me from Thanksgiving via group chat. Reason? My mom, Carol, claimed my chronic pain would bring unnecessary complexity to their $15 million networking event. They were celebrating their social entitlement at Palmera, trying to impress some CEO. What they didn't realize was that the daughter they excluded was the harsh truth. I was the secret owner of that $15 million asset. The house was mine. The party was theirs. And by Thanksgiving, I would ensure that the only thing collapsing at La Palmera wasn't my back, but their entire social pretense. How did the family black sheep pull off the ultimate, silent betrayal? The Blake family never valued hard work, they valued presentation. We lived by social pretense and inherited entitlement. Our currency wasn't effort, but networking and approval. This foundational dynamic defined every interaction. My chosen profession, physical therapy, was a world of honest skill and transparent integrity. They saw my PT clinic as a hobby. I saw it as a structure built entirely on my own determination, free from their toxic dynamics. Their world was defined by image, mine was defined by verifiable results. This fundamental difference meant that every achievement I had made with my own two hands was either ignored or belittled. But how did this constant, quiet rejection ultimately arm me with the only two assets capable of bringing their entire system of pretense down: skill and solvency? I was always the lesser Blake. My sister, Madison, was the ideal social asset, compliant, attractive, and focused on maximizing their entitlement. I was the anomaly, the one who chose skill over inherited power, the quiet betrayal of their expected dynamics. My chronic back pain, the one mom cited, wasn't just physical. It was a metaphor for the constant emotional pain of living under their conditional approval. Every repetition I performed in my clinic was a silent act of determination to be functional, financially solvency, and free. I wasn't fighting for recognition anymore. I was fighting for self-determination, building an untouchable asset not just of money, but of integrity and precision. My family thought they had successfully boxed me in, labeling me too weak and too dependent to matter. But what secret, strategic move did I make years ago that ensured that the $15 million mansion they were using to erase me was actually the very asset I controlled for my ultimate, precise vindication? My chronic pain was the reason for their rejection, but it became the catalyst for my determination. I realized that if I couldn't heal the emotional dynamics of my family, I could at least master the skill of fixing the body. That was my first, quiet act of self-determination. Physical therapy wasn't just a career, it was my sanctuary. Every degree, every certification, was an asset earned solely through my skill and integrity, guaranteeing a solvency they could never touch. I had found a path built on verifiable skill and integrity, entirely outside their system of inherited entitlement. But how did this passion for healing, ironically, lead me to acquire the most valuable asset of all, the $15 million mansion, La Palmera, without them ever knowing? I'm opening my own clinic, on my own solvency and specialized skill, Amirah, darling. That's quaint. We expected you to monetize our entitlement, not massage feet. A Blake running a local shop? That's not a legacy, it's sweet, Amirah. But who needs a PT when you can just hire a yacht captain? Dad, don't you see the irony? She chose a career based on pain management, probably because she needs the job to afford her own complexity. Your skill is fine, but it lacks power. Unless you change direction, don't expect any more financial approval or support for your project. It was a moment of deep injustice. They weaponized their approval and my chronic pain to force me back into their toxic dynamics. They thought they stripped me of everything. What they failed to realize was that they had just given me the ultimate motivation to acquire the ultimate asset, the $15 million estate, with silent, surgical precision. Their rejection didn't crush me, it focused me. Every insult about my complexity and my quaint shop became fuel. I doubled down on my skill and my integrity. I treated every successful patient as a victory against their toxic dynamics and their conditional approval. My goal was simple: absolute solvency. Not just to afford my own pain management, but to acquire the kind of untouchable asset that grants true self-determination. I turned my skill into financial power, proving that earned integrity always beats inherited entitlement. I was building my empire of solvency, one successful patient at a time. But this focused work led me down a complex financial trail, one that exposed a crucial, hidden opportunity. How did my research into property trusts, originally meant for wealthy clients, accidentally reveal the shocking harsh truth about the ownership of the $15 million mansion, La Palmera? I had just opened my second PT clinic, a symbol of my determination and financial solvency. Their response? Silence. But Madison secured a minor promotion, and suddenly, my father, Robert, made a toast about her inherited power and strategic skill. You understand the real game, darling. You focus on entitlement, not manual labor. Amirah's skill is useful, yes, but it's small. It lacks the scale to command true social approval or power. That night, the pain wasn't in my back, it was the sting of absolute betrayal. They weren't ignoring my success, they were actively devaluing my integrity to reinforce their toxic dynamics. Their consistent disregard for my hard-earned integrity gave me a terrifying clarity: they would never change. I realized the only way to beat a system built on entitlement was to acquire an asset so enormous and so strategically hidden that their entire structure of power would collapse. How did this realization lead me to the hidden ownership papers of the $15 million estate, La Palmera? I was focused on rebuilding clients, not relationships. But then Mr. Sterling, a senior corporate real estate lawyer, became my patient. He was fascinated by the precision I applied to the human body, the same precision I needed to dismantle the Blake dynamics. We connected over integrity. He respected that my skill led to tangible results, free from social pretense. He taught me about asset protection, trusts, and shell corporations, the true architecture of power among the wealthy. One session, Sterling mentioned a high-end, rush transaction he'd handled, a $15 million property in Catalina, La Palmera, acquired by a blind trust managed by Ethan Vance, a man known for shady deals and short-term asset flipping. The name La Palmera hit me like a physical blow. It was the mansion my family was using for their Thanksgiving entitlement play. It was the perfect, strategic answer to their public rejection. Suddenly, the $15 million mansion wasn't just a symbol of their entitlement, it was a strategically vulnerable asset. I knew Ethan Vance was looking for a fast, quiet buyer. The question was, could my hard-earned solvency and precision beat the Blakes to the deed, turning their grand social stage into my perfect arena for vindication? I shifted my focus from patient healing to surgical solvency. Using Sterling's advice, I contacted my financial advisor. The transaction had to be executed with the same precision I used in my PT practice: swift, clean, and completely invisible to anyone tracking the Blake dynamics. The $15 million deed for La Palmera was transferred to a new, anonymous trust, one fully controlled. I felt a surge of calculated happiness. It wasn't about the money, it was the ultimate asset of self-determination, purchased with my hard-earned skill and integrity. Ethan Vance was thrilled to sell, unaware his influential buyers, the Blakes, were now my unsuspecting tenants, planning their Thanksgiving social pretense on my property. The power dynamic had shifted entirely. The house was mine. The power was mine. But the final, most crucial step was leveraging their public rejection into the ultimate, precise vindication. How did I, the new, secret owner of the $15 million mansion, ensure that my family and the conman Ethan Vance were not only excluded from my Thanksgiving table, but trapped right outside the front door of my house? The goal was not petty revenge but surgical precision. I created two distinct access codes. The gate code would allow them to drive up the long, impressive driveway, the full social pretense experience, but leave them stranded and exposed on the portico. It was the physical manifestation of their conditional approval, close enough to see the asset, but fundamentally excluded. I hired David, a top real estate litigation attorney, to document Vance's betrayal and the Blake entitlement. I had to mentally prepare for the inevitable emotional pain. I used my PT breathing exercises to manage the building anxiety and the chronic back pain that always flared up under pressure. The day before Thanksgiving, I flew to Catalina. We set up a single, isolated table on the gated terrace overlooking the portico, a stage for their public, yet intimate, judgment. The scene was set for the ultimate vindication. The stage was set, the codes were active, and the legal team was in place. My family, Madison's CEO, and the con man Ethan Vance were about to arrive at the $15 million estate, fully believing they were the guests of honor. But what exactly was my first, precise move when they stood trapped, looking up at the daughter they had just publicly rejected? Thanksgiving Day. The Blakes and Ethan Vance arrived. Madison confidently punched the gate code, my specially designed trap. It worked. They drove up the long, impressive driveway, feeling their entitlement swell. They reached the majestic front portico. Robert, eager to impress Madison's CEO, tried the door. Locked. He tried the code. Invalid. They tried to call Vance, but Vance was already standing there, looking flustered. Ethan. Where is the staff? Why is the $15 million estate locked? You assured us of the best social pretense for this networking event. There must be a temporary technical complexity, Robert. I have the master code. He punches it. Denied. Robert, this is a disaster. Madison's CEO is watching. We look utterly incapable of managing a simple asset. This is all about power. Robert, and we have none right now. The CEO excused himself, citing a pressing engagement. It's a jinx. I bet this is related to Amirah. She always brings some kind of complexity and pain into everything. She probably hacked the Wi-Fi just to ruin my entitlement. Carol agreed venomously. She can fix a strained hamstring, but she can't manage a social event. She understands skill, but not power. We were right to exclude her. Her integrity is too small-scale for a $15 million property. I watched them from the terrace. They were trapped and exposed, their expensive clothes and social pretense unable to shield them from the cold wind and their own escalating panic. Robert was pacing. Vance was furiously calling his lawyer. We've lost the CEO, Robert. The whole point of the Thanksgiving entitlement is ruined. It's all because of this complexity. If only we had been invited to La Palmera by a real owner. That was my cue. They had publicly rejected me, ridiculed my skill and my pain, and wished for a real owner. They had collapsed into their worst, most toxic dynamics. I signaled David, my lawyer, who was positioned near the main terrace entrance. The time for silent determination was over. The time for the surgical reveal of my complete solvency and ultimate power had arrived. I checked the legal documents one last time. Every term was precise. Every signature was secure. This revenge was not fueled by emotion, but by the cold, verifiable integrity of the financial and legal record. I activated the front door code. The magnificent door silently swung open. I stepped out. The Blakes and Vance were in total shock. Amirah? What are you doing here? No, Robert. I fixed the security. I'm here because this $15 million asset, La Palmera, is now my property. This is solvency meeting self-determination. This is nonsense, an illegal betrayal, Mr. Vance. I represent the owner of record. Your client's blind trust was liquidated. You bought La Palmera? You, who can barely afford her own pain management. You always try to destroy my entitlement, Madison. My solvency is the result of my skill and integrity, not inherited power. I am walking away from your toxic dynamics and your conditional approval forever, Amirah. please. Don't let your pain define you, or ruin our legacy. My pain taught me self-determination. Your approval taught me nothing. I own the building you are standing in. You are not guests. You are trespassers. I am offering a non-negotiable condition for my final closure. You may sit on the terrace. It's cold, it's isolated, and it perfectly reflects the isolation you forced upon me. As for Mr. Vance, he will be escorted off the property. His game of pretense ends now. I turned my back to them, taking a deep, calming breath. The cool Catalina air felt like liberation. Let them sit, David. This Thanksgiving, I finally have the only seat at the table that matters, one that I built, one that is entirely, irrevocably mine. This was the moment I chose self-determination over family approval. I had achieved the ultimate act of self-determination. Using my hard-earned solvency to dismantle their toxic entitlement on my own property. But the confrontation wasn't truly over. How did the quiet, isolated hours I spent on the terrace, watching them shiver in their exile, lead to the emotional high point of the entire story, a surprise confession that confirmed the true motive behind my family's years of public rejection? David and I ate a simple, perfect Thanksgiving dinner. I could see my family shivering on the isolated terrace. Carol was yelling at Robert. I felt a strange mix of vindication and pity. Robert left the terrace and stood defeated at the door. I told David to open the door. Robert looked older, smaller. Amirah. This is a colossal betrayal. Why this surgical precision? I know we were cruel about your pain, but why? Because you tried to erase my existence, Robert. When you disinvited me, you confirmed that my chronic complexity was a weapon to exclude me. This house is my weapon for self-determination. It wasn't just your back pain, it was my pain. I couldn't bear to see you succeed without me. You succeeded with integrity where I had only relied on inherited pretense. That was the harsh truth. My earned solvency was a constant, damning mirror to Robert's fragile entitlement. I was jealous of your skill. We couldn't admit that the one we excluded was the only one with real power. Thank you, Robert. That honesty is the only approval I needed, but it changes nothing about my decision. I needed you to say this for my final closure. I allowed him to sit inside the foyer for a moment, a small act of mercy. The documentation for Vance's fraud is ready. Initiate the filing. The precision was perfect. I closed the door, shutting out the Blake dynamics forever. The sound of the lock clicking was the sound of my liberation. The confrontation delivered the closure I craved, confirming that my exclusion was rooted in their fear of my self-made power. I owned the $15 million mansion, I had the legal upper hand, and I had my truth. But what did I ultimately choose to do with the asset? Did I keep the house as a monument to my vindication? Or did my journey to self-determination show me a better, freer path? The silence after closing the door was deafening. David handed me a warming cup of tea. How is the physical therapist? I saw your hand on your back when Robert was talking about the pain. The chronic pain always spikes when I'm under extreme stress. It's the physical manifestation of their toxic dynamics. You handled that with incredible integrity. That takes a different kind of power. Can I help? David gently rubbed the tension in my shoulders. His touch wasn't about the transaction, it was about the trust one had denied myself for so long. What happens to La Palmera? Is this where you finally settle down? This house was never about a home. I'll sell it. I'll liquidate the asset and use the solvency to build schools and clinics where skill and integrity are valued. That is the ultimate self-determination, Amirah. I always knew your power was greater than a $15 million house. I looked out the window one last time. The car was gone. The Blake dynamics were officially extinguished from my life. My legacy won't be a name inherited through entitlement. It will be defined by the solvency of my heart. We shared a quiet, knowing smile. It seems your revenge has truly healed you. It was never revenge, David. It was the ultimate physical therapy for the soul. My self-made solvency had bought my liberation, and the $15 million asset was now poised to fund a real legacy. But what became of my family's shattered pretense and fragile entitlement in the aftermath? And what was the true, lasting impact of my strategic vindication on my own life, years later? The morning after, the $15 million asset felt colder and more hollow. I walked the vast, empty rooms. David managed the sale with professional precision. The money flowed into my new foundation, the Self-Determination Initiative. I poured my determination and my skill into building the first community clinic. This was my new legacy. It wasn't about power over others, but about empowering their own self-determination. My pain felt different. My solvency had bought me the right to choose my pain. The final wire transfer for La Palmera cleared today. The $15 million asset is history. I should have felt jubilant. Instead, I felt a quiet melancholy. I thought of Robert, Carol, and Madison. I realized my revenge had only freed me, not them. The true power, David, wasn't owning the house. It was recognizing that their opinion was worthless. I achieved true liberation the moment I stopped seeking their approval. I'm proud to be part of the Self-Determination Initiative, Amirah. The emptiness didn't vanish entirely, but it became a quiet space for growth. I was prepared to face the world as the owner of my own destiny, defined only by my skill. In the new clinic, I worked with a young athlete. My words to her echoed my own journey. Your complexity is your power. Your pain is your teacher. Define your own solvency. The camera pulls back from the clinic entrance. Above the door, a small plaque reads, "The Self-Determination Initiative." A testament to integrity winning over entitlement, the $15 million mansion was gone, replaced by a foundation built on true integrity. My liberation was complete. But after achieving ultimate self-determination and building my new life, did the Blake family ever attempt to re-enter my world? And what was the final, lasting consequence of my surgical vindication on their toxic legacy? 3 years. The Self-Determination Initiative thrived. My days were filled with the tangible results of my skill and solvency, helping others manage their pain and achieve their own liberation. I rarely thought of the Blakes, but David had promised a final, honest update. David met me at the flagship clinic. He carried a single, slim file, the final chapter on the Blake legacy. Vance is serving time for fraud. The $15 million asset is funding real integrity. Now, about the Blakes. You asked for the harsh truth, Amirah. Are you ready? Robert lost his partnership. The public humiliation and the exposure of his financial complexity were too much. He's working a small, low-authority job. His fragile power and sense of entitlement are completely shattered. Carol is utterly isolated. The social circle that hinged on the Blake pretense vanished. Without the promise of La Palmera and high society approval, she has no power. She blames Robert and, of course, still blames you for the initial betrayal. Madison's career stalled. She still chases the next big, entitled thing. She is trapped in the same toxic dynamics and continues to seek power through association. Her life remains defined by the conditional approval of others. I felt a profound sense of closure, but not revenge. Their fate wasn't my doing, it was the inevitable collapse of a structure built entirely on pretense. I felt a flicker of empathy for their inability to choose integrity over entitlement. One last item. Carol sent a letter through my firm last month. A desperate plea. She didn't ask for money or the asset, but for one final, conditional moment of approval. She asked if you would, for PR purposes, donate a small item to the local museum in the Blake family legacy name, just to show a semblance of continued power and integrity. No. My solvency and determination are not a tool for their pretense. The Blake legacy died the day they chose rejection over connection. I will not be used to prop up their shattered dynamics. That is the right decision, Amirah. The foundation you built, that is the only legacy that matters. It's a true testament to self-determination and skill. The story of the Blake family was officially closed. My future was defined by the open doors of the clinic, not the closed gates of La Palmera. My integrity and power were now in serving the vulnerable. My biggest solvency wasn't the $15 million, David. It was the ability to look at my own story, including the pain and the complexity, and use it to build genuine trust and approval in the people I serve. David and I shook hands, a true professional and personal connection. He wasn't just my lawyer, he was a partner in my new legacy. The dynamics of my life had shifted from toxic family to supportive partnership. I closed the file. The weight was gone. The vindication was complete. I walked into the clinic, ready to use my skill to heal, knowing the cold justice served was merely a consequence, not the goal. The clinic was bustling. Therapists I hired, all dedicated professionals valuing integrity over pretense, were working with patients. This was the antithesis of the Blake world, transparent, service-driven, and built on verifiable skill. I recalled Robert's old dismissiveness, "Your complexity is a liability." Now, I saw my complexity as the roadmap to my greatest solvency. The pain was the source code for my determination. The true power was the freedom to serve, purchased with the symbol of their entitlement. I used the cash from the $15 million asset not to sit in silence, but to empower voices that society had chosen to isolate. My first business plan failed because I was seeking external approval. This one succeeds because it's fueled by internal self-determination. My colleague nodded. The lesson was complete. The Blake legacy was officially extinct. Not through violence, but through the cold, relentless precision of financial and emotional solvency. They were left with nothing but their own toxic dynamics and shattered pretense. The vindication wasn't the goal, it was the mechanism for my liberation. My skill secured my freedom, and my integrity secured my purpose. The harsh truth was that their rejection gave me the necessary push to define myself. 6 months into the new life, the frantic determination of revenge was replaced by the deep, quiet peace of purpose. My clinic wasn't just funded by my solvency, it was fueled by the genuine skill I had honed to survive their toxic dynamics. I was treating a patient's chronic pain, but the process was also treating my own. Every successful session was a form of self-determination, proving that my complexity was a source of power, not a liability that justified their rejection. I finally accepted that my legacy wouldn't be built on their conditional approval or inherited entitlement. It would be built on pure, verifiable integrity. I glanced at the small plaque bearing the foundation's name. I felt gratitude for the entire journey, even the pain and the betrayal. Without their toxic dynamics, I never would have discovered my own unshakable solvency. The toxic dynamic was broken, and I had my peace. But what was the final, unexpected piece of my legacy that came not from my money, but from a heartfelt action that truly defined my ultimate integrity? I was finally in a rhythm defined by skill and integrity, not reaction. Then, David burst in, phone in hand. His face was pale. "Amirah, the news broke. It's a massive financial complexity tied directly to the old Blake accounts. It involves the final transaction from La Palmera. Vance is in prison, David. What kind of complexity could possibly connect to the $15 million asset now? My foundation's solvency is secure. Every document had the court monitor's approval, it's bigger. The foreign trust that bought La Palmera was a shell company. It was linked to a global money laundering dynamic years ago, which is only now being exposed. The funds used to pay you are under federal freeze. Pending investigation, my blood ran cold. The solvency that bought my liberation was compromised. Not by my family's entitlement, but by the wider world's complexity. The initial funding for the foundation, the construction loans, all jeopardized. Does this legally affect the clinics already built? Did the wire transfers for the building of the legacy clear before the freeze? Yes. But future funding is paused. This is a massive betrayal of trust by the buyer. Your integrity is untouched, but your capital is frozen. The ultimate irony. The $15 million asset, the very source of my vindication over family entitlement, was now the source of a global complexity that threatened to destroy my new determination and legacy. We fight this with the same precision we used against the Blakes. We will use my skill and David's legal power. We will prove the integrity of the Self-Determination Initiative. Every cent was earned honestly. My back ached, a reminder of the chronic pain that first defined my complexity. But now, the pain felt different. It was the resistance I needed to push against. I had the self-determination to manage this new crisis. I immediately called an emergency meeting with the foundation board. This wasn't a family drama, it was my responsibility to protect the legacy and the patients we served. My power was now tested on a global scale. David, contact the banks that gave us the initial construction loans. Show them the successful operations, the patient outcomes, the integrity. We will request temporary bridge funding based on our operational skill and approval. They trust you, Amirah. They saw the clear line between your solvency and the Blake pretense. Your reputation for determination and integrity is the only thing standing between us and collapse. My family taught me the cost of conditional approval. This crisis taught me the true value of earned integrity. This wasn't about revenge, it was about protecting the liberation I had worked so hard to achieve. Dr. Evans, a colleague, stepped in. Amirah, the funding crisis is bad, but Mrs. Chen needs her PT session. That's why we're here. Focus on the skill, you're right. Let's start the session. Every minute I spent away from this new crisis felt like a betrayal of my purpose. The mental stress was a direct transfer to the physical pain in my back. But the difference was, this time, I was fighting for something real. I thought of my parents, of their entitlement and their need for pretense. They would have collapsed instantly. But their toxicity had forged my self-determination. There was no going back to seeking their empty approval. Our legal strategy relies entirely on the precision of your paper trail. Every step of the law Palmera acquisition. Your fastidious integrity is our greatest power. This was the ultimate test of my new legacy. Could a foundation built on honest skill and ethical solvency survive a direct attack from the vast, impersonal complexity of the financial world? I gathered the clinic staff. We face a financial challenge, but our work, our integrity, is safe. We are the Self-Determination Initiative. We use our skill to win. No panic. Just determination. They nodded, reassured by my power. The frantic work to secure bridge funding subsided. This new crisis was a mirror, not a wall. My family's entitlement made them blind to external complexity. I sought to prove that external skill beats internal approval. The old dynamics were driven by my chronic pain. This was a pain of purpose, not a pain of betrayal. The freeze tested my actual solvency. I was fighting for the right to define my self-determination without the shadow of the Blake complexity. I realized my original precision missed one piece. I needed to publicly sever the tie between my success and the Blake name forever. My skill wasn't just physical therapy, it was strategic thinking. I remembered an item Robert had mocked, the physical representation of their betrayal. David, contact the Science Museum. I want to donate an artifact to their Innovators exhibit, crediting the Self-Determination Initiative. The plaque must explicitly state, designed by Amirah Allen, built through relentless determination. No mention of the Blake legacy or their approval. You're divorcing the truth of your skill from the pretense of their money. The federal freeze won't touch this. The artifact wasn't worth anything monetarily, but it held the deepest meaning of my liberation. By dedicating a symbol of my determination and chronic pain to a public forum, I ensured my integrity would stand forever. But what was the final, lasting image of my legacy that proved my self-determination was truly complete? The board meeting was tense. The federal freeze on the $15 million asset was a terrifying complexity, but I needed to project power and control. My self-determination was contagious, replacing panic with fierce determination. Amirah's legal precision means the foundation's operational solvency is secure for now. We have bridge loans pending. The core issue is proving that the $15 million asset was clean money before the buyer's betrayal. Amirah, the media is linking this to the previous Blake dynamics, the entitlement and the fraud. Is there anything from your family's history that could legally compromise your integrity now? Absolutely not. My solvency was built on my skill, not their pretense. I used my determination to buy Palmera and cut the Blake legacy off. I refused to let their toxic past become a liability to this foundation. That's why I donated my personal artifact to the museum. It's a public, permanent testament to my individual skill and integrity, conceived after my chronic pain diagnosis. It divorces my true legacy from the $15 million asset. I wasn't just defending my money, I was defending the liberation I'd fought for. My power was no longer based on vindication over my family, but on the integrity of the work itself, helping others achieve self-determination. Amirah, your strategy is sound. The artifact and the foundation's transparent skill provide the necessary counter-narrative to the media complexity. We approve the bridge funding request. Your determination is truly commendable. You faced a larger threat than the Blakes, and you stood firm. The ultimate liberation isn't about escaping them, it's about being strong enough that they can never touch you again. Not even their ghosts. I left the boardroom and walked back to the clinic floor. The true measure of my solvency wasn't the frozen funds, but the sight of my staff, dedicated to service, fueled by their own determination. I saw a patient struggling with her exercises, fighting back tears from pain. Use that frustration. Your complexity is not a full stop. It is the beginning of your self-determination. Don't wait for anyone's approval. My new legacy was secured. The small artifact, once a source of mockery and rejection, now stood in a museum, defining integrity and skill. The $15 million asset was just history. The purpose was forever. The vindication was complete. I no longer needed to chase my family's ghost. I had defined my own power, earned my own approval, and was finally free of the Blake dynamics. Their power was built on inherited wealth and social pretense. My power was built on the precision of my planning, the unshakable integrity of my actions, and the solvency of my spirit. David gave me a slight, respectful nod. Our partnership was the final proof of the healthy dynamics I'd chosen. It was a partnership based on mutual skill and unconditional trust, not on fear or conditional approval. My new life was built on integrity, but the old world demanded a villain. When the media linked the $15 million asset freeze to the Blake scandal, society needed someone to blame for the collapse of their beloved social pretense. David reviewed the coverage, shaking his head. They're ignoring the money laundering complexity and focusing on the family feud. One columnist called you a vengeful architect of a toxic legacy. It's pure rejection dressed up as journalism. We also received a formal statement from Robert. He claims your determination to buy La Palmera and then sell it was a deliberate act of betrayal, orchestrated purely for revenge to steal their entitlement. Let them. Their entitlement is so deep, they cannot process their own complexity. They need a scapegoat for the collapse of their pretense. Their rejection is meaningless to my solvency now. Their power was dissolving, but mine was growing. My response wasn't a press release, it was the growing list of patients whose chronic pain we managed daily, a true testament to my skill and integrity. The harsh truth, David, is that they didn't just hate me for my complexity. They hated me because my determination proved that their way, based on conditional approval, was fundamentally weak and destined for collapse. Society joined the blame because they were complicit in the Blake pretense. They enjoyed the illusion of entitlement. My vindication shattered that comfortable lie, and they lashed out, demanding my rejection to restore order. Our counter-narrative is simple: the museum plaque. It permanently stamps your legacy with skill and self-determination, entirely separate from the frozen $15 million asset. It is undeniable integrity. We will not engage with Robert's rejection or the media circus. The fight is over. My liberation is not dependent on their silence, but on my own peace. True solvency is internal, not external. I walked into the treatment room. The patient needed my skill. The complexity of their physical situation was real, unlike the manufactured drama of the Blake dynamics. My determination belonged here, serving a true purpose. I smiled at the patient, a genuine smile free of pretense or conditional approval. This was the ultimate vindication, a life built on honest labor and earned power, a life that no external betrayal could ever compromise. Tell Robert that his final act of entitlement, blaming me, is meaningless. The Blake legacy is over. I define my own power now, understood. The message is delivered. David's loyalty was a sharp contrast to the conditional approval of my childhood. He fought for my integrity because he believed in my skill. This new, functional dynamic was the real reward for the years of pain. I used my personal complexity, the knowledge of chronic struggle, to connect with every patient. The $15 million asset funded the building, but the pain funded the vision. I embraced my past as a source of power. Our mission is self-determination. We don't give them conditional approval. We give them the skill and the solvency to manage their own lives. Free from toxic dynamics and external entitlement, was it revenge? If so, it was a systemic vindication of the self. I didn't destroy them, I merely let their pretense destroy itself, while I built a legacy that was impervious to their rejection. While my family clung to their pretense, the people I actually helped spoke the only truth that mattered. The integrity of the self-determination initiative is beyond question. Amirah's skill and solvency were earned through years of determination. She is the antithesis of the Blake entitlement. Miss Chen, a patient who had battled chronic pain, posted a video. The Blakes brought her pain, but Amirah used that complexity to build hope. She gave me back my self-determination. That kind of power is real. It's not conditional approval. The social media groundswell is working. The public is seeing the difference between manufactured drama and real-world skill. The narrative is shifting from revenge to liberation. Your precision in handling this crisis is paying off. The isolation I felt during the Blake rejection dissolved in this wave of trust. These were the healthy dynamics I'd always craved, connections built on earned respect, not entitlement or the promise of the $15 million asset. The Blakes couldn't respond to the patient testimonials. Their entire legacy was a house of cards. They had no real skill to show, only pretense. They chose complete silence, accelerating their social collapse. The ultimate vindication wasn't the sale of La Palmera. It's the moment a woman, crippled by pain, stands up and tells the world that I gave her back her determination. That's a power they could never buy. The news coverage showed the museum plaque, a small artifact of my complexity now defined as a symbol of integrity. It was proof that I didn't need their approval or their entitlement to build my legacy. The federal authorities have confirmed your integrity. The initial funds wired to the foundation were deemed clean. The solvency that remains is secure, proving that your determination was untainted by the buyer's betrayal. I looked out at my successful clinic. The noise of the old Blake dynamics finally faded. I had achieved liberation, not through destruction, but through creation, fueled by my own self-determination. The whole saga taught me this: your family's rejection can be the fiercest fuel for your determination. Don't waste your energy on revenge. Invest it in a skill or a legacy that is impervious to their complexity. David, I want the foundation to quietly earmark a small grant to an anonymous fund for supporting the children of financially ruined families. It's not for the Blakes, but for the cycle they represented. I had earned the ultimate solvency, the freedom to act with grace, even towards the ghosts of my past. I no longer needed their approval. My determination had made me truly free. That is a powerful statement, Amirah. It truly seals the integrity of your legacy. He smiled. This was the final exchange of trust between partners, marking the complete end of the old toxic dynamics. 12 months. The noise of the Blake dynamics was finally a distant echo. I stood in my new clinic, small, functional, and fiercely independent. The air was clean, free of the toxic pretense of their old money and entitlement. The federal freeze on the $15 million asset was eventually lifted, but the money no longer held the same power. My true solvency wasn't financial, it was the ability to weather any complexity with unshakable determination and integrity. I was guiding a young man who had suffered a severe injury. This isn't just physical skill. It's about mental self-determination. Don't let the pain define you. Use the complexity of your situation to find new power. I realized I hadn't thought about my mother's approval in months. The need for their rejection or acceptance had simply vanished. My legacy was built on my own terms, requiring only my own unconditional approval. The media had moved on, the Blake name was tarnished history. My vindication was quiet and absolute, a successful, ethical business. This was the true, lasting power that their entitlement could never compete with. Every step of this clinic, from the construction to the patient schedule, required the same strategic precision I used to dismantle their pretense. It proves that the methods of revenge can be repurposed for creation. David stopped by, not with legal documents, but with coffee. I saw the news clip about your museum exhibit. It's beautiful. You converted a lifelong betrayal into a public act of integrity. Liberation wasn't a bank balance. It was the absence of the constant internal conflict fueled by their toxic dynamics. It was the freedom to wake up and apply my skill to a purpose I chose, not one dictated by their entitlement. I looked at the young patient, now smiling as he stood unassisted. See? Your self-determination is your greatest asset. Never let anyone's conditional approval become the price of your power. This was my new, healthy dynamic. The greatest act of revenge is living well. The most powerful legacy is one you build with your own hands. And the deepest solvency is the quiet, unshakable confidence that comes from surviving your own complexity and finding peace. My chronic pain was still there, a dull ache, but it no longer held emotional power. It was a reminder of the battle, not a definition of my rejection. It was now simply a physical complexity managed by my own skill. The only $15 million asset that mattered in the end was the one I earned, my complete self-determination. That power is truly priceless. It cannot be frozen, stolen, or compromised by any external betrayal. I closed the door to the treatment room. The clinic was quiet. I was alone, but not lonely. I was whole. The saga of the Blakes was over. My legacy had just begun. 3 years. My life had a settled solvency now, not just of money, but of mind. David and I met for lunch, the casual routine a stark contrast to the old, frantic dynamics of seeking revenge. I heard Robert is still attempting to appeal his sentence. Did you ever consider visiting him, seeking some final, verbal vindication? No. His complexity is his own. My liberation is not dependent on his confession or his conditional approval. My old relationship with Robert was rooted in familial entitlement and shared pretense. The new boundary was absolute, integrity and skill. There was no neutral ground, no space for the old toxic dynamics to creep back in. Did your mother ever reach out again? After the media backlash from the $15 million asset freeze, once. A handwritten note, full of rejection and blame. She claimed my determination had caused the entire family's collapse. I burned it. The pain of her words was real, but its power was gone. I owe her nothing. My self-determination means I control the narrative, not her attempts at betrayal. Your precision in handling that note, no response, just disposal, that was the final act of emotional liberation. You didn't just win the case, you won your life back with perfect strategic skill. The social circle, the people who valued Blake entitlement over my worth, simply faded. They didn't betray me, they just ceased to matter. They were part of the old pretense that my legacy no longer needed. The only dynamics I maintain now are those built on trust. David, your belief in my integrity during the federal investigation was the true foundation, more solid than the $15 million asset ever was. I understood the true depth of vindication. It wasn't about sending Robert to prison. It was about ensuring that the emotional pain he caused could never define my future. The best revenge is a life where they become irrelevant complexity. My legacy isn't just the clinics. It's the honesty I applied to the toxic past. I faced the complexity, I defined my power, and I chose my self-determination over their easy approval. David and I stood up, ready to get back to work. The future was clear. No grand dynamics, no dramatic rejection. Just the steady application of skill, sustained by my hard-won internal solvency. The Blakes tried to break me with conditional approval and public rejection. But they only forged a woman whose determination and integrity is now unbreakable. I am finally free. Their greatest defeat was not the loss of their wealth, but their descent into irrelevance. My greatest power was ensuring that their every toxic dynamic faded into a footnote of my self-determination story. You asked me once what my biggest asset was, David. It wasn't the $15 million asset. It's the ability to sit here today, talk about the past with honesty, and genuinely feel zero pain from it. For years, my initial act of revenge had blossomed into something vast. Today marked the opening of the Self-Determination Research Center, a new chapter, focused not on healing pain, but on preventing it. David arrived, holding hands with his partner, Marcia, and their young son. This center is the final stroke of your legacy, Amirah. The money from the $15 million asset that was freed is doing real, tangible good. Their family, built on mutual trust and unconditional approval, was the antithesis of the toxic Blake dynamics. They were the healthy, chosen family that my self-determination had earned. David's son handed me a drawing of the clinic. His innocent skill reminded me that a legacy can be built without complexity or betrayal. It only requires determination and a clean start. This center proves that the greatest power is not inherited entitlement or social pretense. It is the integrity to honor your own journey, even the pain and the rejection. My solvency was now complete. Not just the financial solvency that the federal government confirmed, but the spiritual solvency that allowed me to turn the greatest betrayal into the greatest vindication. David and Marcia moved away. I felt a familiar sense of peace. My new journey wasn't about a child of my own yet, but about the profound liberation of being a mentor, a creator of a new, ethical legacy. The planning for the center required the same relentless precision as the takedown of the Blakes, but this time, the goal was growth. My skill had transcended revenge, it was now applied solely for human self-determination. I looked out at the center's gleaming, modern architecture. It was a tangible monument to the idea that the end of one toxic dynamic is always the start of a powerful, new one. This was my future. Their entitlement led to ruin. My determination led to creation. That is the only real measure of power in this life. No grand gesture, just pure, quiet, earned legacy. David's son waved goodbye, a pure moment of joy, untainted by conditional approval or expectation. It was a simple, beautiful dynamic I was now capable of appreciating fully. My journey was full of complexity, but the final resolution was simple: self-determination over manipulation, integrity over pretense, and real skill over fake entitlement. The fight was worth it. Thank you, David. for helping me turn the rejection of my past into the solvency of my future, for showing me what true trust and healthy dynamics look like. I walked through the new labs, filled with the power of my own determination. Every cent of the returned $15 million asset was reinvested here, cementing a legacy that was 100% mine. You've seen my journey, the complexity, the pain, the struggle for vindication against an old legacy built on pretense. Now, I want to talk directly to you, the person facing your own toxic dynamics. Lesson 1. True revenge is living well. Don't waste your determination on their rejection or seeking their conditional approval. Your focus should be on building a legacy so strong that their existence becomes irrelevant complexity. Lesson 2. Your internal solvency is your greatest asset. The $15 million asset was just money. The real power lies in your unshakable integrity and skill, a foundation no external betrayal can ever collapse. Lesson 3. Entitlement always leads to ruin. People who demand power without earning it, the Blakes of the world, will eventually self-destruct. Focus on your own self-determination, not their pretense. Lesson 4. Action is liberation. Don't wait for your vindication, build it. Lesson 5. Choose your own dynamics. Surround yourself with trust and earned approval, not fear. That's the formula for true peace.